Hello, my friends. I'm so happy you can join for this episode of the Enneagram and Marriage podcast, all about your partner's Enneagram habits. Stop taking them personally. I am so glad you joined me for this special episode. I'm smiling as we talk through that title because I know you pressed play today because you were like, oh my gosh, Krista, I need to talk about this. I need to relax with this. I need to do something to help me from not feeling like my partner's type drives me crazy sometimes. And yet, what is it? So that's what we're going to talk about type by type today. I know you need this friend. We'll talk about some general cues as well. As we get started on that, I want to just share a couple things. Those of you who have already signed up for the Enneagram coaching and masterclass, so excited to meet you. Also, if you're a coach, I welcome you to come back and learn. We always bring new levels of learning in because I keep learning with you. And if you haven't joined up yet, make sure you check out the show notes because I have a $500 off coupon for you. Use the coupon code MARRIAGE and you can get a huge discount if you sign up by January 30th, 2025. So looking forward to that. You can take it on demand or live and love helping people to really take a deep dive with me. We spend time together for 2 hours every single session. And I teach deeper marriage theory, combining that with Enneagram. And I find the most practical Enneagram tools for you to use in your own relationship and with couples. And you might use these personally like I do. And then I teach Wes the ones that I think that he would like best. But him being a non-Enneagram person, he's not doing the Enneagram coaching with me. And he's also not familiar with all of the terms. So maybe sometimes you're like that too, where you're like, okay, I use this deep dive in my own coaching or pastoral or psychological practice, but I also know that it's not going to be me and my spouse doing this together. So just to clarify, this can be taken by coaches, counselors, pastors, lay people, couples together, or individuals. So looking forward to seeing you there. Otherwise, my family and I just had a wonderful time traveling to San Diego and especially to Palm Springs, where I got to share the Enneagram and marriage presentation with Triad Group. Make sure you check out my Instagram post on that. It was absolutely beautiful setting in Palm Springs, California. I am absolutely so grateful that I got the chance to share. It was such a delight. And I've been sharing locally as well and will continue to travel when I can, when it fits in with my kids' winter break and all that, which was the perfect timing. But I'm just so grateful that I got to do that. So I had to give a shout out to the wonderful time and experience there with people eager to learn Enneagram and marriage. And it was at the most beautiful La Quinta resort. We got to actually, I was the only female speaker, but we had surprise speakers there, legends, Bo Jackson, Andre Agassi, and also Emmett Smith, along with Tim Grover of the book Winning and Will Godaro of the cooking. You probably know him as a restaurateur or the show The Bear. So what a joy to get to share Enneagram and marriage with the Better Halves Club, which was the wives and partners of this group. And oh my gosh, total seven setup, mountainside, gorgeous setting, outdoors, DJ. So yeah, totally living off that fumes. Plus we got to show the kids in San Diego, La Jolla. So hello to our San Diego people. You have such a beautiful town. That's why we were inspired to get engaged there. And our kids now are like, oh my gosh, this is great. My nine is like, okay, I thought I was an East Coast girly. Now I'm both coasts. All about the comfort and bouginess for her. So it was cute. It was fun. We are back to freezing along with all of you. And I'm sure wherever you live, it is very cold right now. I know from my Michigan friends, schools, colleges are canceled, less than 0 degrees out there. And we're freezing in a different way down here. So I'm just really with you all in just knowing that winter has beauty. And it's just a different kind of beauty. It's an indoor beauty. And we're working, we're doing taxes, we are in life together. So let's get gritty, let's work hard, and let's learn some new steps so that your mindset does not get in trouble when you're trying to walk out your spousal issues. Because that happened to me. And in fact, today's Marriage Minute is a funny story from the plane. Oh my gosh, I have to tell you about this. It was hilarious hilarious and also awful at the same time. But such a good lesson was learned that flies us right into our topic today. And that is that when I was on the plane, I was 30,000 feet in the air. And picture this, Wes is noticing his airplane seat isn't quite right. And we're all seated separately. I brought my whole family on my business trip. So I'm in the business class, and the kids and Wes were all separated. So all of a sudden, we hear Hannah, who is near Wes, heart type. She's like, I want to be near somebody. So Hannah is texting us that this person who is being announced on the radio is Wes, is her dad, and that he's got a safety issue with his seat that needs addressing. And we're in this, as you know, Dallas airport. For those of you who have been through this airport, we did not want to get a flight through Dallas, but we had to because we were rerouted. Um, and of course, Wes, in his integrity, had to tell them that his seat wasn't working right and he had to report it. And meanwhile, I'm thinking about like, oh my gosh, like, of course, planner. Like, we don't even have anything to do that night. We're getting home late at night, but there were so many people that raised their hand, like, who has a quick connection? Because we were already so tight because it was a Dallas quick turnaround and we knew we were all going to have to go to these different terminals. And so I'm just like, are you kidding me that Wes found a problem with his seat and he reported it? And he was texting, I'm sorry, guys. I had to, but I'm so sorry. I told them, let's please go. I can make it work. And now they're doing all the safety protocol and they said they have to write everything up. And I realized in that moment, I could let his perfectionism trigger my anxiety. As you already heard me say, this is the way home from everything. This isn't the way to anything I had to be at. Or I could recognize this is his journey of integrity, not my story to carry. And guess what? Everything worked out. Everybody got to their flights, I hope. And I know we did. And there was enough time. And he was sorry, but he was also a little fiery in his one as a justice type. And he was so funny, in fact, that I was just able to process and do that thing of like, I could let, him get to me, or I could be like, this is his story of helping this airline to be better. And I wanted to be like, in my head, he could have done it at a different time, but it all worked out as it was meant to be. So the first lesson for all of us is letting our spouse be who they are. And what I did was I took a deep breath and I texted back, it's okay. We love you. And also, you're a type one, I said, and we're all learning all the time. Because he's like, maybe I should have waited. And I'm like, we're all learning all the time. It's okay. And I added, because I'm a person of faith, God has this, because I knew that he felt terrible. However, we have our witty banter as spouses because on the way on one of the Dallas trams we were on, trying to run to our next flight, um, he was like, I was like, hey, honey, I was just like, that was so wild. And I just like probably showed stress on my face. And he goes, it's not your fault. I was just like, oh my gosh, I am married to a body type. And I was like, I know it's not my fault. But it was like he was done and he was just laughing to me like I absolutely know it's not my fault by now. I've moved on and you should too. And I did. We did. We all did. And I saved it for this talk today and I was sharing that with him too. Like this is our spouse's issues and gifts put together. There are so many moments, like you've probably read my book, The Enneagram in Marriage, where you can see me in that space on the Beehive Mountain. Just one more hike, just one more hill to climb, just one more moment when I'm not at my exact best. And yet, when we allow ourselves to truly take that deep, clarifying breath and instead of holding our hands over everything, controlling it, release our hands open, it's just a different experience. So that is my biggest tip to you as we get started in this marriage minute was just thinking on one story maybe you have of you or your spouse sort of driving each other wild with the ways that you work sometimes, and then understanding that there's a difference between supporting our partners and absorbing all of their stress. So that will help us all to know, okay, there is a differentiation. I'm going to walk that out with you in a minute, but you already see a little bit of that already. So that's my first reminder. Um, So, when you, in general, before we get to the specific types, are triggered by your partner's patterns, something that I've learned to do just in general is to take my own coping styles and use them. And Wes likes when I do that too. Otherwise, I start to perseverate on like what's happening with him and what I need to do about that or not do. And the for instance I can give you is we lean into the type one a little bit is when his perfection is up, I can say to myself, okay, Wes is needing, he's angry about something. I need to try to fix that. I need to make him happy. And instead of that, which is not my responsibility, I need to set my own boundaries and to say, you know what, he's dysregulated right now, and I can do a little bit to try to make him comfortable and happy so that it's not rude where I'm like, oh, I don't care about him. I'm setting a boundary. But I think with your partner, if you have a one in your life, if you just try to get them to stop managing their stress and you just try to get them to like have fun in the moment of their stress, it's not going to work. You can do that later, but if they're high stress in that moment, you need to set your boundaries so that you don't become implicated in it and have them now looking at you with their body type anger. So that's been helpful for me. And as I said, Wes likes that too when I know that. And so one of the things I've been doing is just putting my headphones on for a few minutes or music on where I'm at because our brains are really adapted toward music at every cellular level, from what I understand from the music therapy research I've read at large. I'm not a specific person here, but as a generalist, knowing music can just really calm all the senses and take you to a much better place, a healthier place. And then I'm not implicated in, oh my gosh, I have to fix Wes's stress. I have to be a jester. I have to please him. And so it's not like I want to do that because I want to be fawning. It's more because I would practically be like, oh, what can I do to make him happy? And I've just over the years realized with the ones in my life, it's their work to do. And even if your one says to you, I want you to make me happy, that's kind of impossible. We have to create our own joy. We can't just bring it all the time to each other. So set your boundaries. Maybe for you, it'll be music. It might be the phrasing that if you're thinking things like, I can't do anything right, that you have to allow yourself to say their standards are about them, not me. Another thing you could say is their drive for improvement is about their own inner critic and not my worth. And so just know that so that you don't end up feeling like it's your fault. And I think that with that paired with my suggestion to do something about it for yourself to calm your own angst, you will be golden. Okay, now let's talk about twos. Twos struggle sometimes, of course, in marriage too, like anybody else. And if your two is over helping, for instance, maybe it's not a perfectionism thing like one. Of course, if they have a strong one wing, you can take those tips. But if they're over helping, you might feel smothered. You might feel like they're overdoing for you. You might say to yourself, instead, their need to help isn't my need to change. And they might need to have that boundary set with them. You might react by pushing away their help entirely. And they might do the same to you because they might say, look, I'm a two and I don't need your help. And so they push you away and instead allow that deep breath to come to you both, especially to you because you can't control them, and allow yourself, if you do need a little space, to tell them, I just need a little space. And allow yourself to notice if you're letting your two do everything also because they are being so helpful, and allow yourself to realize that their value and need to help isn't your fault because you're incompetent. It's part of their value system to be a helper. So it's not you who's not good enough. It's that they love helping. And I find that so key when I have, you've probably heard me say both of my local and my closest friend in Michigan are both twos. And seeing them dazzle so much and do so much helping, they spin circles around me sometimes, but when I'm triggered with incompetence, I'm lucky enough to have friends both of them being super encouraging of me and my gifts too. So that helps a lot. And I'll just say that to any twos out there, really speak in to your people to tell them about their wonderful worth so that it's easier. But let's say they don't do that and they're just insecure. So they're always like, I'm the best helper. Remember that. Like, this is a boundary I can set. And I can find my competency through other means. If they can't give it, I can set boundaries with them. It's okay. You're allowed to do that. Okay, now threes. As a partner of a three, you might sometimes feel invisible next to your three because they're dazzling everybody and doing all the things so beautifully. And if you've got a story, they've got a better story. If you've done something great, they've done something even greater. And that can be just so discouraging if you're in that space of like, my goodness, I'm struggling here. So just remember that if you're a three, your partner might feel like they're just another trophy on your wall. And they might even sabotage your success a little bit or become competitive. Could happen either way, with the three trying to outshine you and vice versa. But remember, the three's drive for success is about their fears, not my significance. So it's about their insecurity, their need to feel like this is how they're loved. And if you're shining, sometimes it can feel like, there's not room at the table for everybody to shine. And so you might feel like they're making you feel insignificant, but I'm going to challenge you to shine next to them. Shine beautifully together. This is where the glow Enneagram work comes in, where you shine brighter together. We all do. And so allow that journey and that growth to be multiplied. Do not dumb down or hide in the shadows. They will love when they're healthy. And of course it'll take time for them to regulate too to this, but they will love having you rise up with them. Okay, now a type four, sometimes their emotional intensity can get to you. You might feel as a partner, my goodness, I'm emotionally exhausted. Or, your four might feel like you're, saying they're too dramatic, and you could find yourself doing that, like, stop being so dramatic. Or you might even feel like I mentioned as a one, sometimes managing the four's emotions. I have done that with my four daughter, and that's not healthy. And sometimes, like I said, that partner or that family member might even want to pull you in a little bit to feel that. Hannah will do that, but we've worked enough now for me to know to set my boundaries. And she's 19 now, so we've done a lot of work together over the last few years in this. And then later, she almost always comes up and says, I'm really sorry I did that. And I'm actually like, I didn't even, spend time getting sad about it because I knew that was your issue and I knew you were going to be fine. So that's what I recommend to you, is to use the phrasing that their emotional depth is their processing style, not your responsibility. And of course, that is going to be different between parent child and spouse or sibling or in-law, but whoever it is, that's a great way to talk to yourself, is that inner voice to tell yourself, this is their processing style. They do a bit of a push-pull dance, and it's not my responsibility to walk up and down or on eggshells with them, but I can show them love and say, I love you. I care about you. If there's something I can specifically do to help you, let me know. Until then, I will let you process this individually. And if they really do respect you also, then they will be able to deal with that. And that might take time because fours are a reactive type. Remember that they're a heart type too. So I wouldn't go too far, and I wouldn't say it in a spirit of meanness, but true kindness and love, even if you have to say it a few times. Okay. Now, if you're with a five, I know our fives out there can make sometimes this wall, and their partners might feel locked out emotionally, and their five might feel like, oh, you're getting clingy or you're demanding. And so they might withdraw and create emotional distance. And I think you need to remember that their need for space is about energy management, not rejection, when they're at their best. And of course, any of these types, when somebody's at their worst, sometimes it is about those things that you're like, oh, I was hoping it wasn't about that. But you don't have to take it that way, even if they mean it that way. Even if the five is like, hey, I am in the rejection triad and I'll reject you before you reject me. You don't have to receive it like that. That's the difference, is you can allow yourself to tell the deeper, healthier narrative, which is this is about their own issues. And the ways they do this sometimes, and if you're on the Deeper Dive podcast series, we're talking exactly about that today with our groups here, where we're talking about that group, the rejection slash relationalist triad that five is in. But yeah, otherwise it's just about the energy management. And so try to understand that fives are very logical and we can dig deep, but sometimes we just need to stay right there and say, this is about their energy levels. And I know that they'll be back when they feel more energy. And you can also let them know that so you can feel some empowerment too. Hey, I'm going to set my boundary with you. And that way we're in that pursue or distance or dance where sometimes it's me who's going to request space, not just you. Okay. Now, the type six anxiety can creep in into the marriage, and you might feel like, oh my gosh, they're constantly needing my reassuring, or they're becoming reckless to prove a point, or they're, making me feel worried. And taking on their fears can be a really big thing whenever you have a six in your life. And when you instead allow a nice regulatory deep breath, you can remember their need for security is about their patterns, not my security or not my trustworthiness. If they're poking you and prodding you for being trustworthy and you're like, I am trustworthy, it might be about that. Or they might be poking and prodding, like, are you okay? Are you okay? And you're like, oh my gosh, they're overwhelming me on a security level. So just understand that that's part of it all, is that's just being a six. There's a lot of reactive energy. And you can also set some boundaries around how much reassurance you provide. You might say, look, we've been talking about this for 10 minutes already. I'm starting to get dysregulated. I had to tell somebody that yesterday who was triggering me. And then they were being triggered by somebody else and they were telling me about it. And it was 11 at night. And Wes was like, I hope we can get to bed soon. And your screen's on. And I was like, it was a family member. So I was like, you know what? I am going to tell you, I need my peace. I usually do my Bible study right before bed. And I was just like, I need to take some space from you and I will talk to you in the morning, very soon after I wake up, because it was a family member who I wanted to assist. And it was also at the same time me telling them the person you're talking to is in their six. So please set a boundary because you guys are probably overly stimulated past 100 heartbeats a minute, which is, something we talk about in therapist and marriage work. You might have heard me mention on this podcast before. Not much good comes after that. So just knowing that we can do that with our sixes and then say, let's reconvene. We're not going to miss this, but let's see after we both take some deep breaths, some rest, maybe even sleep if it's that late hour. That's harder for sixes than some of the types, but it's good for them. And they will find their coping strategies too. Encourage that and offer some help on how to find coping strategies. But sometimes they may need more help than just we can give. So it's also okay to say, let me refer you to a therapist or somebody else. Okay, now sevens. You might feel like, gosh, my seven partner never has enough excitement or satisfaction. And you would be right. Sevens do feel like that, very kinetic. And you might say, I'm going to control to keep my seven present. I might exhaust myself if I'm with a seven trying to keep up. And remember, and this is something sevens don't remember a lot, but it's very key that the stimulation for a seven is about fear, not inadequacy on your part. And sevens just don't connect enough to fear. I still say that to this day sometimes where I'll be like, why is my heart beating fast? I'm not afraid. No, it is fear. When I stop to really deep dive into all my therapeutic journeys, oh yeah, I'm afraid of something, but it's just not easily accessible because we might be seeking pleasure or doing something stimulating. And so it's not that it's 100% of the time, just like a body type or a heart type, it's not 100% of the time, but there's a leaning towards that fear. So when you know that as the partner, you don't have to control them because that won't work, right? Trying to control somebody who's in great fear just doesn't work. But when you say, hey, I need to set this boundary because I feel overstimulated right now, I need a break, that's their responsibility to respond to you. And you can set your boundaries with that seven. Also, if you're having trouble keeping up, It's okay to do that too. I had to do that the other night in San Diego with Wes. Even though I'm a seven, he goes to seven in health and I more go to five. So after like the days of the conference and the days of just a couple days of travel, I was getting tired, but I still wanted all of it. It was like, hey, this is a fast trip, so let's make the most of it. But it was like he had endless energy and he was in his hyper masculine mode too, which I've been sharing that with him. I'm like, I've been using that word a lot with him. I'm like, you are hyper masculine. And like, we had already done a hike up, plus a long walk before we got to the hike, of a Torrey Pines. You might know that trail in northern San Diego area. We had already had breakfast on La Jolla and saw the beautiful seals and walked up and down the cove there and took pictures. Hannah, of course, in her glory as a four. We had already taken time all afternoon to explore. We had visited with a friend the night before, Caleb from Enneagram and Marriage. We had just had a full schedule and it was fantastic, as I said. But then at the very end of the night, after we were just kind of at that point where you're like, the kids have been swimming. I've sat by the pool while they're swimming. It was very fast paced because it was cold. Um, we then decide we're going back out again and to the gas lamp district. And Wes is like, oh, I really want to see the gas lamp district again. I want to show the kids downtown San Diego. I'm like, I am so tired. I will do this. I will have a glass of Moscato. I will sit with you all. But, and then he's like, let's go to Ghirardelli. And I'm like, okay. And then Hannah found a non-dairy Ghirardelli. And I'm like, okay, this isn't even me wanting all the satisfaction. It's at this point Wes, because he's like, I'm a one. I need my fun. And I just started to like withdraw a little bit. But I told him, I was like, I need my space now. Like, I need to have a little moment to just chillax. So, do know that you can tell somebody in their seven that they might not fully hear you because they're going. But you can find your corners and you can find your. I had pasta and I was like, okay, that will be calming and relaxing. And then he's like, do you want to go down to the end of the street and show them even more of the gas up district? I was like, no, I'm good. I want to go back to the bed and sleep. So just know that I'm with you. I am a seven, but I have a seven with me. So it's double energy. And then when he was up ready to go jogging the next morning, several miles, I was ready for it because I had good rest and I wanted that. So come back for the energy. That goes for sevens and eights because eights have a lot of energy. And you might feel steamrolled sometimes because your eight might be like, okay, we need to do this. You might react by becoming passive aggressive and, just giving up your autonomy, letting them run everything. And, remember that their need for control is about vulnerability and not wanting to be too vulnerable and, making sure that they're in charge so that they don't have to show you weakness. And know that that's also about loving you because they're trying to show you their strength. They're trying to show you, like, I want to be strong for you. But it's not about your capability, it's about this vulnerability issue for them. So if you can't keep up, let them know you're pacing. If you also want some things to decide, let them know they're very reasonable, but they have to hear it. Don't do this passive aggressive thing where you don't tell them or you drag or you're stubborn or you forget in quotes. Just talk to them outwardly. They get that. They're very logical. They want your clarifications. They want you to be real with them and they will adapt and adjust, especially if you show up with strength. And you can do it even if you're a type who's like, I don't want to show up with strength. I'm tired. They deserve that bit of your energy. They're your partner in life. So just as I told those with sevens, kind of run with them for a little while at least. I'm telling that to those with eights, show up to explain yourself so that they understand you better. And please understand them and not wanting to be vulnerable all the time. That's painful. They have bad memories with being overly vulnerable. Of course, as you're together longer, they'll be more and more vulnerable. Now, Type nines understand that you can deal with the conflict avoidance of a nine. And you might take my early tip on, yes, when I see this happening with them, I can dig into my music or my self care or set my boundaries. But just know that the big things you might experience with a nine are them kind of stopping sharing and giving up on connection. You might see them creating conflict passively to get a response. You might even feel crazy for having issues because they're like, I'm good, I'm fine, and nothing's happening. But please understand they're dealing with internalizing this need, a felt need rather, a felt need of having to peace keep and trying to have internal harmony because it feels scary for them to have anything else. And it also feels like if they don't maintain the peace, you'll go away. So just remember, this is about their quest for internal harmony. It's not about my concerns not being important. It's not even that I'm bad or wrong. It's just that they're trying to keep harmony. And I can try to ask them, how can we both hear me out, but also give you your internal harmony? And I think complimenting your nine on what they're good at and helping them to see what they're doing right helps and goes a long way. Also, giving your nine credit for what they've done right is huge. Nines really do want that credit. I know my nine said the other day, nines can hold a grudge long. She's like, this is my personality failing. We can hold a grudge for so long. So understand that that's their work to do. And sometimes it's a matter of justice. Maybe they feel totally right about holding that grudge. She and I walked through a story of a nine and we were like, why is this person doing this? And she and I realized the nine is holding a grudge. And that's what made her say that. And she's like, yeah, that's something that we don't do well. But it was so helpful for me to process that with my nine to understand that this other nine, this may be their issue. And of course, I always have things to learn. So keep doing your type journey too. I promise it's worth it. And just as you heard me say that first moment, like really digging in and saying, this wasn't really about Wes in the plane seat. This was about me needing to release to God the plans, my planning fixation. Ask yourself, what's my fixation with my type? What is happening that makes me feel like I'm out of control? And what can I do about that so that I don't harm my marriage just by letting my spouse not be themselves? We've got to do that. So please know that. And I'm right there with you, doing this work with you. And I am so grateful for you doing this work with me because it's simply boring and dull to do it by yourselves. I love hearing when my friends and family ask me Enneagram questions. This is what the coaching and masterclass is all about. So don't forget to check that out in the show notes too. Make sure you take one tip from today that you're going to apply. It's probably somewhere along the lines of some deep thinking to get you back on track so that you come back to healthy positivity, some realism too about what your spouse or partner's issues that are driving you crazy are really about. And some of it's their good and some of it's their hard. But we have to take the good with the bad and we can't let them drag us down an unhealthy spiral just because they're having a hard day or moment. And that is absolutely key because we want to lift each other up. We don't want to be like, you fell? Oh my gosh, I'm falling down with you. We want to be like, okay, I'm here. I'm here to help you as much as I can. And I'm also here to stay as regulated as I can and help you back up. So that's how you do it, my friends. You really stayed with me. I'm so proud of you for putting this into action. And I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes. Keep me posted. Let me know if you like this episode. The reviews you leave on Apple mean the world. And I hope you'll leave one if you haven't already. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.